Evo prije dokumentarnog filma o piramidama imamo iznimnu čast na 4D portalu gostiti jednog od najpoznatijih istraživača teorija zavjere na cijelom svijetu, a vjerovatno i kod hrvatskih ljubitelja zavjera, David Icke. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this interview and opportunity for 4D portal. Well, we will start with questions because we don't have much time. This is your third trip in Croatia. What impressions have you gained by walking the streets of Zagreb and through casual conversations? Are the Croats conscious nation?
Well, I haven't done a lot of walking because it's been bloody cold. But I've been here now 3 times, and I think there are many people in Croatia that are really awakening to things that we need to understand are going on in the world. And you know, somebody did some computer stuff when I was in Australia and established that ratio to population, my name is put into Google by more people in Croatia than anywhere else in the world, which to many people would be extraordinary, except that one of the things that's been different about Croatia from my point of view is from the first time I came in 2008, when Emil picked me up off the plane, he said, we're going to a television studio, which is not what I normally do because the mainstream media shut me out. But I ended up that day on a mainstream news program for like 20 minutes, and then I've done hour programs on the same channel. And I've come here this time, and I've done national radio and national television. I'm going to do national television again on Monday. And this is like, this doesn't happen to me. Where the mainstream media are interested is to ridicule me and all that stuff, which is what happens in Britain. So being able to get this information out into the mainstream like that has really been a massive bonus in Croatia and has made a real difference in allowing more people that would normally hear it in the normal course of their lives actually to come across it. And, you know, it reminds you that just how powerful this information is in explaining the world to people, to see that when they do have access to it, it makes them kind of see the validity of it and how it explains the world for them. And so this has been a special place for me, Croatia, because of that, and long may it continue.
Yes, it will certainly continue. In a month, there is a referendum on the European Union in Croatia. What do you have any message to Croatian citizens?
Don't start me off. I from the first time I came here in 2008, I have banged out this repeating message, if you like, about the European Union. Which is, don't go there. You know, when I look at the catastrophe that the European Union is, that what's going on economically now, where we have a situation in a so-called free Europe where 2 bankers have been appointed as prime ministers of Italy, a country of 60 million plus people, one of the biggest economies in Europe, and of Greece, and that this guy Monti in Italy is a European president of the Trilateral Commission, one of these manipulation groups that I've been exposing all these years. The other guy, Papademos, over in Greece, he's a member of the Trilateral Commission. They're both major bankers, and they're running these so-called democracies in Europe without even seeing a ballot box, never mind having someone use one to elect them. And at the same time, in line with this mass manipulation technique that I call problem, reaction, solution, create the problem, then offer the solution to change society as you want it changed. We now have these ludicrous, arrogant people like Jose Barrosi, the president of the European Commission, and people like Merkel and Sarkozy and this guy, Herman Van Rompuy, the so-called effect president of Europe, unelected again by the people. And they're saying to overcome this economic collapse, which they have orchestrated along with the networks they represent, we're actually using the term now for the first time, because they've been frightened to up to this point, although it's been the game all along. They must have deep integration in Europe. Now, what does deep integration mean? When you've got a situation in which now something like 75% and growing of laws that affect British people every year do not start out in the Westminster Parliament. They start out among the dark suits in Brussels, who again have never seen a ballot box. And 75%, and now they're talking about deep integration beyond that. What does that mean in terms of people having no say in their own lives? And, you know, the European Union has a law for everything. Down to the fine detail of your life. And we in Britain, who joined in the early 70s, have had this erosion of sovereignty, erosion of freedom, the constant imposition of more and more rules and regulations, but at least it's happened over a period of time. Countries like Croatia, symbolically, there's a tsunami gathering on the borders called red tape, regulation. You can't, you can, you must, you mustn't. That is waiting to swamp this country once, if you know, God forbid, you do go through and join the European Union. And, you know, even down to this, I've been, you know, exposing, and I will in my event here, the nature of these green light bulbs, right, which are actually not green at all. They're bloody lethal, contain mercury and all that stuff. They give off radiation, they give off damaging chemicals. And it was nice to come to my hotel in Zagreb, and I always do, I look at the light bulbs, and every country I've been to on this tour, Australia, New Zealand, America, you've looked at the bloody light bulbs, and they're those wiggly bloody things, right? And that means I don't put them on, unless they're way at a distance on the other side of the room. But it was great to come to Zagreb and look at the light bulbs, and they're the original ones, the incandescent ones, you know, the ones that don't do you damage like that. But when you join the European Union, if you do, they're going to become compulsory in Croatia, because the European Union have already banned the production and sale of those alternative light bulbs that we've had since electricity was created, was discovered and created. And that's just one example of this tidal wave of regulation and red tape. And the moment some member of the Croatian political class, who was ever in power at the time, signs the final document, that's the end of Croatia. Croatia's not a country anymore, just as Britain's not a country anymore. Croatia at that moment becomes an administrative unit within a bureaucratic spider's web. And what happens in Croatia will no longer even be decided at your parliament building in Zagreb. It will be decided by dark suits in Brussels at the European Commission, who will start dictating every area of life. And they are at this time engineering economic collapse to justify not only the further massive integration, in other words, centralization of the dictatorship in Europe, economically and in other ways. They are also creating a situation in which we are going to see more and more basic fine detail of people's lives throughout Europe dictated to on a level that we haven't even experienced yet, because what they want in the end is not even a European Union of countries, but a European Union of regions. And if you look at the maps that they've already issued, These regions include taking part of Britain and putting it in the same region as part of France and part of Scandinavia, putting a whole coastal region down through Britain, France, Ireland, and Portugal in one region. In other words, countries disappear, and they'll do the same in Croatia, because that's the idea. And they have been planning this all along, and ironically, many of the people who have been fundamentally involved in pushing this negotiation forward are now being investigated and charged with corruption, you know. And I find it not staggering, because I understand how the conspiracy works, but I find it, if I didn't understand the conspiracy, shocking that at elections that Croatians are being given no choice by any party with any chance of forming a government, or voting for a party that at the very least says, hold on a second, in the light of current events in Europe, we just got to have another look at this. No, it's all the major political class of whatever party they call themselves are pushing this on. And, you know, the analogy that I can use on this is that Croatia, even considering going into the European Union, for all these reasons and current events, is like someone watching a building collapse in front of them and then asking to move in, right? This is what we're looking at. And as I was saying, it's not just that they're using this economic crisis engineered to centralize more and more power. They want to use this crisis to kick on with what they've done in Greece and Italy, which is to go on replacing elected governments with appointed bureaucrats, because in their own writings of this network behind this whole global conspiracy, they talk about their desire to move into a technocracy where people are not elected to run countries. They are experts, technocrats and experts in various things, and scientists and academics that actually run the countries and run people's lives, not elected people. And there are organizations, like there's a training organization in Britain that works in many other countries too, called Common Purpose.
Otpor.
Common Purpose, yeah, which have been training with government money the leaders of local government administration, right? And these people working for Common Purpose actually talk about the post-industrial, post-democratic society that they're training these people to run. And that's the technocracy that these people write about. And that's what we're seeing the first major example of in Greece and Italy, and it's not meant to end there. And Croatia, please look at it. Don't let the political class enslave you and your children and grandchildren forevermore by going into this spider's web, this political and economic flytrap that is the European Union.
New World Order is all around the world. My hometown of Slavonski Brod is under the constant smoke of pollution of the Russian oil refineries in Bosnia. How important is the activism against the global corporations, and do you have a message for my townspeople?
Well, you see, this is a thing that even some people that investigate the conspiracy don't appear to understand. Because Russia challenges some of the things that America does, then in that way, because America is the big bad guy as it's perceived, actually the big bad guys are really in Europe, places like London and Rome and Paris and Berlin, Brussels. And then, you know, there's some real unpleasant bad guys in America, but to a very large extent, America is firing the guns, and people see that happening, but the guns being loaded in Europe, and America is much more controlled than people realize. And some conspiracy writers, therefore, go, well, Russia's not so bad because it's having a go at America. But
like Daniel Estulina, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that someone like Vladimir Putin is anything but involved is ludicrous. And so what we're looking at, for instance, at the moment, is, as I've been writing about for such a long time, we're seeing the pieces being moved around to create a third world war. And as I said, you know, so many years ago, that is designed to be what we call NATO, North America and Europe, in conflict with Russia and China. And the idea is that they've had 2 world wars, all of them planned, and 3 were always planned, to, in 3 stages, transform global society with this world government, world central bank, world army, to stop this ever happening again, even though we're the ones doing it, a world currency, etc., etc. And so you look at Russia and you look at China and you look at the NATO countries, and they are promoted and projected as being, you know, isolated and different from each other. But when you get high enough, you get into the Putins, you get into the upper levels of the Chinese leadership, you're meeting basically people controlled by the same force that control Obama and Cameron and Sarkozy and Merkel. And so we have this situation where you've got this hierarchy in each country that is following this global plan, and they're using their own populations to play them off against each other, because, you know, Bush, Blair, Cameron, Obama may declare wars. They don't bloody fight them. The people fight them, and they fight wars against other countries in which their leaders overwhelmingly, in terms of most of them, like Russia and China, don't fight the wars either. And so you've got these leaders that are answering to the same force, that are playing their populations off against each other. And we have to stop doing that. I mean, you know, the good news is that the ratio of people in full knowledge of where they're pushing the world is absolutely tiny compared with the target population of 7 billion. And what they have to do, therefore, is divide and rule the target population, to a certain extent recruit from the target population for their people in uniform and their administrators, but overwhelmingly divide and rule the target population through divisions of religion and race and culture and income bracket and all this rubbish. We as a people, as part of this target population, we need to look at ourselves and say, hold on a second. If we don't put our conflicts down, if we don't put our differences aside and come together on this, then we're going to be sitting, symbolic and literally, in a bloody prison cell a few years down the road. And then we can sit for as long as we bloody like and argue about who's got the best religion and all the rest of it. But and then it will be too late. We need to come together, Jew and Arab and middle-class American and Croatian has come together, because we may speak different languages, we may come from different parts of the world, but we're all being manipulated by the same force. And we are the many, they are the tiny few. And they can only do what they do by dividing and ruling us. And it's so important that we stop that happening.
Many 4D portal readers in the Balkan region ask, why don't you come to the other countries of this region?
Quite simply, ask me. You know, the journalist asked me this week, well, how do you choose where you go? I say, I don't, it chooses me. You know, people ask me, and if I feel it's right to go, I go. So no one in these other countries have asked me. So if they did, I'm sure I'd go, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, some Croatian media have devoted their attention to your arrival, but only through the aspect of your financial gain. I do not want to interfere with this segment, because by the reading of your books, that impression just don't hold the water. But I'm interested in what kind of major court allegations are against you, and what is their background.
Well, no, I see, I'm not going there. I'll tell you for why. I'll tell you where this has come from. In the early 90s, I was mercilessly ridiculed in Britain by the mainstream media, which, if British mainstream media's brains were gunpowder, it wouldn't blow its hat off. You know, I mean, that's what we're talking about. all the way through this period of time, since then, they have completely ignored me because they thought we finished him, the corpse is on the ground, and we're walking away. In the last 3 weeks, they have discovered that actually large numbers of people, actually vast numbers of people around the world, are actually looking at my work. And thus, they have come back on the scene and realized actually that the corpse wasn't dead and they should have finished him off, not that they ever could. And so how do we get him now? Yes, we can call him mad, but we've done that before. Well, how can we get him again? All the money he is making, right? And the figures they're talking about is absolutely bloody ludicrous, you know. I live in a small one-bedroom flat on my own. And I'm not saying that because I'm poor, I'm not. But that's my lifestyle. You know, I don't do this for money. I tell you what, I went 3 years between 2005 and 2007-8, where because of financial attacks on me, I never earned a penny from any book, tape, and almost no talk worldwide for 3 years. And I still kept going. When we had reached the point where we were probably weeks away from finish. And thus, all this stuff is just manufactured garbage from a garbage British media that is so brain dead it cannot look at what I'm saying because from its myopia, from its stunning ignorance, what I'm saying is so different to their programmed software norm that what I'm saying cannot possibly have any validity. Thus, there have to be two other alternatives to the fact that what he's saying is true. And that is, the people coming to see him are as mad as he is, or he's conning them for money. It's got to be one of those two, because the third choice, possibility, that what he's saying has validity and people come because they see it has validity, they can't compute that. So they have to find a cover story. It's rubbish. It's so much rubbish. And you know, if people just concentrate on what I'm saying, does it have validity or not, then we can have some kind of conversation. But you know, I mean, I've lived with it for 22 years. These people are brain dead, and to take them seriously is ludicrous. It's the worst thing you can do.
What are you going to introduce in the upcoming new book, Remember Who You Are?
Well, it's a couple of things, really. It's written for two reasons. Obviously, for people that have read my previous books, it goes on from that. It goes on into the influence of things like Saturn upon our sense of reality. I go into that in some great detail, and I'll kind of touch on it in the event on Saturday, but the details in the book. But and there are many new things in it. But one of the main reasons I started to write it, because when I start writing a book, I don't really know where it's going. I've just got a kind of bit of a theme, and then it goes where it goes when I'm writing it. But I've realized all around the world now, there are enormous numbers of people who are feeling uneasy with the world. They don't like the way the world's going. They don't like what's happening. They're uneasy and anxious about it, but they can't put the finger on what the bloody hell's happening. They just don't like it. And, you know, people, you know, they go to work and they earn their living and they go home and they have families to look after. They've not been able, as I have dedicated myself to do for 20 years, which is to go full time, whatever it took, in pursuit of finding out what's going on. And so I'm in a position where I can produce something that says, hey, you know, you're feeling anxious about the world? Yeah, I know. You don't like the way it's going and you don't feel good about it? Yeah. This is why. Connect the dots. that other people can't connect because they're too busy, you know, often surviving and living their lives and earning a living and stuff. So that's one of the major reasons I wrote it. And I think that for that reason, it's going to have a massive impact, because a lot of people who are in that, "Oh, I don't like what's going on, what's happening," are going to read it and they're going to go, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." Because if you don't know where we're being taken and the manipulation methods to take us there, you haven't got a compass, you haven't got a sat-nav to make sense of world events. Once you have a fix on where they want to take us and how they take us there, then you suddenly see world events in a completely different way, and one in which, you know, because I know people who've been through this process. I went through the process years and years ago, where you reach the point where you go, you've got these basic kind of coordinates of what's going on, and suddenly, you know, someone's reading a news item at you, some politician's making a speech, and you're going, that's where that's going, that's what he's saying there, he's saying that because he wants that to happen. And this is what I'm trying to get across, these coordinates that explain why the world is as it is and why world events are happening as they are. If you know, for instance, that the plan long term has been always to create a third world war by creating conflict between Israel and some Muslim countries like Iran, then current events are not haphazard. Someone, they're pepper bombing Libya now. Oh, look, oh no, they've gone into Syria. That suddenly, these are not random. You can see exactly why they're doing it and where it's going. So this is why this information is so important, that people can then get a fix on reading the world in a very different way.
Thank you very much for this great interview.